So you want to become a reader but you don't know where to start, or you've come to the right video, because I was sitting down today and I'm going through my go-to recommendations that I kind of let people know when they tell me that they want to get into reading but they just don't know where to start. Obviously there's so many books in the world, obviously people don't know what's good, what's bad, and obviously my recommendations you may not 100% enjoy, but I'm going off my own personal experience, and also in general they're quite popular series and books that I would recommend. We have obviously different piles behind me. I've got a mixture of YA fantasy, regular fantasy, romance, YA romance, and then also I've got some like sports romance-y recommendations as well. So without further ado, I think I'm going to start with the YA categories, and we'll start with our YA fantasy. Let's see if I can pick this up without it. As you can see, I've got 4 recommendations, and these are actually all part of a series, so let's go through them one by one. Our first YA fantasy book, we have got Shatter Me by Tafira Mafi. So this is quite a hit and miss book that I've seen online, however I loved it. It did take me a book or two to get into the series, but as you can see, it's quite long. That's the whole series there on my bookshelf. I adored this so much. We are following our main character, Juliet, and we start our story off where she is locked in almost like a mental asylum. She has been put away because she has these powers, and her power is that she is basically unable to touch another person's skin, and if she does, she causes them an immense pain that she can kill them. So there is a backstory in this where she hurts a young boy, and this is the reason why she ended up kind of in the custody of the authorities. So we are following Juliet's journey of getting out of this asylum, and it's really hard to describe without giving anything away, but we have love triangles, we have got almost like an enemies to lovers situation as well. It is just really fun, it's fast paced and super easy to understand in my opinion, so this is always one of my recommendations to people. And also I find with the whole YA category, I love it because especially with fantasy dystopian, as without spice there is plot, there is a lot of plot, whereas when people focus too much on spice you lose plot completely. Pick this up if you haven't. Moving on to Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is probably in everyone's recommendation videos, but it deserves to be there. I will say that's the second book. Reckless, not like that as much, but this one, still to this day I think about it and I'm like, yeah, I really enjoyed that, I had fun. In this one we have a land of ordinaries and elites. So elites have powers, ordinaries don't, and our main character Payden, she is an ordinary and has grown up basically tricking people into thinking she is a mind reader, but she's just very good at reading people's expressions and body language. She was taught that by her father, who we learn passed away or got killed by the royal family. She then has this encounter with our Prince Kai. She ends up helping him and then suddenly disappears. So he's like, where's this girl gone? I want to see her again. And then suddenly, because of her saving Prince Kai, there is basically an event which happens where the winner of it becomes famous, rich, you get everything that you want, if that makes sense. So she is then in these trials as an ordinary against all these elites trying to make it through. It's really entertaining. Their banter in this book really got me. I did just like their communication, their flirtiness in a way, and it was a really fun story. I'll always recommend. Now on to a book that I've read very recently. This is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is obviously a YA fantasy. It's based in a fae world. We're following our main character Jude, and she has 2 sisters, and one of them is her twin and the other one we find out is actually half fae. So Jude and her sister Taryn are human. When they were younger, Vivi's real fae dad comes to the human world to collect her, but she obviously wouldn't want to live without her sisters. The dad is like, okay, I'll take you all. That's kind of like the prelogue that we get. So then we are then back to the present day. We're following the story. Jude loves being in the land of fairy, but she always feels as if she is missing out or in danger. So she's almost desperate to get some kind of power so the fae cannot control her or have any kind of authority over her. So that's kind of the journey that she's trying to take. This book wasn't my favorite of the series. It slowly got better. It's a trilogy, so definitely read this, stick with it, and move on. It really grew on me. I was in tears by the third book. That's all I'm going to say. Now for our next recommendation, I don't think it would be a YA dystopian fantasy recommendation without this book series, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So now I've only read the first two, but I have seen all the films, and it's such a world and story that I love. If you don't know, we're following our main character, Katniss Everdeen, and in this world there is a event called the Hunger Games, where people from each kind of district get picked out of a hat randomly to go in and fight to the death. So we learn very early on that Katniss's sister originally gets picked. So obviously Katniss would not let that happen. Her sister is like 11 or 12, so she volunteers in her place, and then we follow this amazing story, the actual trials, the Hunger Games itself. We have her relationship with her fellow district person Peter, who I adore. It is really good, and the writing is so easy to understand, and I feel like I'm so happy that I watched the films first, so that makes sense, because I was able to picture the actors in my head and just see it. Like, it was like I was like watching the film right in front of me. It was so good. You probably have read this, but if you haven't, go do it. Now let's talk about our YA romancy fiction story, so our non-fantasy book. So I've just got the two recommendations for this genre because I'm still yet to pick up quite a lot of them. I feel like initially the books that I pick up are adult romance, but I do love a YA romance book. Starting off, we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. So I believe, this was in one of my previous reading vlogs, and I utterly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. It just took me back to that time when I was 14, 15, like falling for a boy, having a crush for the first time. Our main character Liz is a hopeless romantic. She is obsessed with rom-com films because her mum used to always watch them with her before she passed away. So she has this conception of love and life almost being like a movie and not being real. So she's striving for that, but will it happen? Probably not. So she makes an unlikely alliance with her neighbour Wes in this book to try and win over one of her old crushes. So he's trying to help her be cool, dress better, and then they slowly learn that they really enjoy spending time together. And then it's that decision, like, do we hate each other? Are we friends? Or like, are we actually in love? And it was so sweet. I flew through it. This is the first book in a series, and our final recommendation for our YA like romance situation, I have got the Boys of Tommen series. Now I'm just gonna hold binding 13 because they're heavy and big. All I can say about this is I'm not 100% sure that it is actually YA, but to me it is. It's got little spice, like the littlest amount of books that I've read, and it's based in a secondary school or a high school, so we're following characters that are like 15, 16. So in this story, please check your trigger warnings before you head into this series because it is hard-hitting and extremely emotional. However, we are following our main characters who come from a very abusive household, so their dad has abused them their whole life, and their mum. The series itself is split into different couples. So our first two, Binding and Keeping 13, are Johnny and Shannon, and then we've got Saving 6 and Redeeming 6, which is Joey and Aoife. That's how I call her. And then the final book that's out at the minute is Taming 7, which is about Gibbsy and Claire. So obviously each book follows different trauma, different stories, but of the ones that I've read so far, it's been so good, but also so heartbreaking to read. I do think that almost everyone that I've known that's read this has really enjoyed it, so I think that you should go and pick this up, especially like the Binding 13, Keeping 13. We've got like shy, quiet girl meets popular rugby boy, so if you're into that kind of trope, then it'll definitely be up your street. Now let's move on to our adult romance section, and I'm just going to take a quick glance over this series because I do talk about it a lot and I feel like everybody does, so I don't think you need to hear me drowning on about it. But this is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. I have read the whole complete collection, adored it. Reckless here, which is the 4th book was my favourite. That was my 5-star of the series. Now, if you don't know, it's a small town romance which is following kind of like a family of sons and a few of their close friends. Each book is quite different. They all have different tropes. Like, for instance, the first book, it's like a personal assistant and a bull rider, and then like the second one, we've got the single dad nanny trope. So each one definitely is different, and if you don't like one, definitely try another, because you'll find one of them that is up your street, I think, because I didn't know that I loved like a one night stand pregnancy trope until I read Reckless by Alice Silver, because that opened my eyes and set me on a course, because I love it. Our next romance rec, I've got Out on a Limb by Hannah Bowman Young. So I read this in a 24-hour readathon recently and adored it, gave it 5 stars. We're following our 2 characters, Win and Bo, and they both almost have like a disability. So Win has a hand that didn't grow to full size when she was born, and then Bo has got a leg prosthesis, and they meet at a Halloween party. Things happen and she ends up becoming pregnant. So like 9 weeks later, she has to reconnect with this guy that she hasn't spoken to and let him know that she's expecting a baby. Bo is adorable. He handles the situation like an absolute king. It was so cute and cozy to read. I loved Hannah Bowman Young's writing. This is the first book that I've actually read by her and was utterly impressed. I think I went into it not expecting too much, which is why it blew me away. We've then got The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I feel like she is a queen here on BookTube, and I can see why. I have read now Bride, which is a vampire fantasy style, and then this one. This was also a 5-star for me. I feel like most of these books that I am recommending you would be 5 stars, because why else would I recommend them? This is a fake dating scenario and I absolutely loved it. Dr. Carlson, our main male character, it basically all starts out by our female main character, Olive. She accidentally starts a rumour that she's dating Dr. Carlson. It's just fun, it's witty, it's humorous. It was just a really good time, and I love the aspect of like STEM and science within this. It was really fun to read about, and it actually felt quite real because it added a little bit of depth and like knowledge to the characters. Our final recommendation for our adult romance, I've got Happy Place by Emily Henry. I feel like it's more, I would say, of a fiction book rather than a romance, but obviously the subplot in it is heavily romance heavy. So in this, we are following Harriet and Win to their family and friends. They've been engaged for a while now. They've been dating like 8 years or so, I think. However, to them, they know that they have recently split up. So they have to end up then going on a trip to a cabin that they take every year with their friends. And this is the last one. So they don't want to ruin it. They have to go into the situation acting as if they're still together. And it just brought on so many emotions for me. I found it so relatable. Emily Henry's descriptions of the place where they were staying, I think it was Maine. Yeah, I think it's based in like a Maine kind of like beach town area, but it was so beautiful to read about. Characters' journeys, it's insane. So pick this up if you're looking for more of a like a less spicy, like not intelligent but more beautiful writing. You know, like some books can tend to read a bit Wattpaddy, but this is pure fiction. So I quickly am sticking with romance, but I'm moving slightly over to sports romance. I want to give you guys 2 series that I highly recommend. So first up, I want to talk about the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. The first book is Mile High, the second is Right Move, and the third is Caught Up. So I've now read these 3 now, and I believe Play Along has recently come out, so I need to go and pick that up, because let me tell you, I think this could be in my like top 5 series of all time. I did not think that I would like it. I thought it would be cringe and a bit like, oh yeah, it's okay, but it's so much more than that. I adore the characters, I adore Liz's writing. Some parts, obviously, yeah, it's a little bit cringe, but it makes me feel a certain way in my heart. So obviously, sports romance. Our first book, Mile High, we are following an ice hockey player and his flight attendant, and they almost have to date in secret because he is too concerned about his image and how he comes across, because he's known as the player of like the hockey world and league. And our second one, we've almost got like a dislike-ish to lovers. We've got close proximity, and this one we're following our basketball player Ryan and his sister's best friend, who needs to move into his apartment for a while because she's recently split up with her fiance because he was cheating on her. Also a little bit of fake dating in this as well because they need to kind of help each other. Ryan basically wants to impress his manager and Indy wants to get back at her ex and convince her friends that she has moved on and is happy. And then Caught Up is the one that I read literally 2 days ago and adored it. We have got Kai, who is a baseball player this time, and he is a single dad, so he hires a nanny for the summer who is his manager's daughter, and her name is Miller. She is like this easygoing free spirit, so it's just so good seeing how the worlds collide. Kai is normally uptight and very strict about certain things, so her coming in needs him to loosen up, and I love this series so much. It's a 5-star series for me. Then quickly going over the Maple Hill series, so the first book is Icebreaker and then the second is Wildfire. Daydream has recently come out, but I need to get my hands on it. Now these are all following an ice hockey team of the Maple Hill University over in America, and if you're looking for a fun, easy, spicy sports romance book, then these will up your street. There isn't much depth to the characters, but I just thought they were so fun, and sometimes that's what you want. Like, they did exactly what they were meant to do. It's not going to make you sit there and cry, but it's gonna make you smile and giggle, kick your feet a few times. So yes, pick these up. Moving on to our final genre that I will be talking about, we have got our more new adult and adult fantasy. So this could be books that have obviously that little bit of spice in them or a slightly more confusing storyline, which is harder to follow. First up, I want to talk about The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now this is an epic 900-page duology. I have also read the prequel, which was just as good. This was once again a 5-star for me. It's a high-end fantasy where the world is almost led to believe that the religion and gods they follow is a certain way because of a recent story in the past. However, people do start to learn that things aren't always as they seem. It's a multi-POV book. We're following like 4 different POVs in different parts of the kingdom, and they slowly come together for this huge event. The story is basically that there is this huge dragon which was put to rest by a queen in the past, and there is a prophecy that all these dragons are going to awake and come and destroy the world. So there are people trying to fight to stop that happening and finding certain things to help put the dragons back to sleep if they do wake up again, and it's so be prepared. The first 150 pages you may be confused about who is who and what's going on, but please stick with it. It's amazing. And the next one probably needs no introductions. I have got a Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is an absolute BookTok booktube staple. All the girlies read it and all the girlies love it, or you know, the majority of them do. So it's that series. It's just on the top there of my bookshelf. We have got 5 books in total and I hope more come out eventually, but this is once again a fae world similar to that one in Cruel Prince by Holly Black from the YA section that I spoke about. And we're following our main character Fair, who ends up killing this wolf in her forest, and turns out this is one of the rich, important high fae. So another fae comes to the human world to come and take her away, so it's almost like a life for a life, a deal. So she is destined to live out the rest of her life in Perivian, which is the land of the fae. We're then following her epic journey. This book, there is trials, there is betrayals, riddles, everything. It was such a fun read, and it just honestly got better as the series went on. Couldn't recommend it enough. And then finally, quickly going to touch on Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is the book that got me into reading. It made me become a feral reader, and the reason I probably have this booktube account today. So I'm forever grateful for this series. The second book is Iron Flame, which I also have read, and the third, Onyx Storm, is coming out in January. So if you haven't read this series, it might be the perfect time to start now, ready for that new release. But this is set in a war college situation. You can go into different jobs to train into. So we've got dragon riders, scribes, healers, and I honestly can't remember the rest. The ones that are important is the dragon riders in this book. So we're following our main character, Violet, and she is the daughter of the general of the army. She originally thought she was going to go into the scribes, which is, you know, safe and easier to get into and survive. However, she ends up having to enter the trials for the dragon rider faction. As you can imagine, it's scary. People die trying to get into their Dragon Rider army. And she also has a disability where her bones are super weak and she's like a weak person in general. So that's also another challenge that she's facing. But this book is fire. The world building is easy. It's just such a quick read, even though it is a long book. It's not too long though, about 500 pages. 500 pages of absolute insaneness, and Zayden Riorson will forever be my favourite book male character of all time. Okay, so I hope you're feeling a little bit more into knowledge about what books that you should start with if you're trying to get into reading, or even if you're already a reader, pick some of these up if you haven't, because I have tried to put some in here that maybe I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I do know that a lot of them are popular, which is why you can trust these recommendations. Thank you so much for watching, and give this video a like if you have enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see my face again. I'll see you in the next one.